what we look for is a kind of a smell test. Is that did the board essentially award their CEO stock options, which is how these CEOs get into being paid $20, $30 million, $50, $60 million a year, is they're getting stock awards for performance of the stock. And the smell test that we've got is that, and very few companies actually pass this, is that the CEO is getting paid for long-term performance of the stock. That is, that we believe that ultimately the stock will be at its value rather than at just some random price because of emotions in the market. And that's when the CEO should be able to collect. They shouldn't be able to collect on a yearly basis because the market can misprice things dramatically, either badly or positively. And you don't want somebody walking away with $20 million because they had a good month, or a good 6 months. It's absurd. And it doesn't, and the second thing is that.
So hold on. So you don't really want to see the award of that stock until there's been a long tail of stock performance.
Yeah. I'd kind of like to see they don't get any of it until they're done. Like 5 years done at least or something, just they don't get it. They don't get to put it in their pocket. And maybe that works against the other thing, which is that we want them to have skin in the game. And so obviously if they get stock awards, now they've got skin in the game and they're going to try to do stuff to protect the skin that they've got, which is stock shares. I'd rather see them buy it. I really would rather see them buy it. So we've got this problem that CEOs like to get paid for the work they did this year. And it's very hard for us to find a proxy statement. By the way, this kind of stuff is on the proxy. It's not in the 10K, where the board is laying out how they're paying the CEO. So one of the things that we use for a smell test on this whole thing is, can I understand how the CEO is going to get compensated? Because it's all based on bonuses and hitting the targets and all this and that. And what we want to see that the CEO is getting compensated for building a better company, not for having a better stock price in the short run. Right? So if it's stock performance, they're going to be compensated for the wrong thing. That's such short-term stuff. We want to see them compensated for the very things that we're looking for from a good management team. Low debt, high free cash flow, high owner earnings, right? Building the moat bigger. Those are all things that are going to accrue to the benefit of the company long-term. And that's to the benefit of the shareholders and everybody else, all the employees, the suppliers, everybody benefits if they're looking long-term at those issues. And it's hard to find proxies I can understand easily. We were talking about this a few podcasts ago where you were saying you really read them and you understand them, but you're a lawyer. You know how to read this stuff, or you have a brain that can absorb it.
Proxies aren't that hard.
I have trouble.
Come on.
Oh my gosh. I've read proxies where I literally have no idea how they're going to compensate the CEO.
Oh, well, that I'll give you that. Yeah. They definitely, sometimes I think purposefully make it hard to figure out. Yeah.
I think they do it on purpose so that the board can just go along with them. Hey, okay, you deserve it. And we deserve to stay on the board, don't we, Bob? Right? Yeah, stay on the board and here's your $250 and use of the Gulf Stream. That's such a scam.
It happens.
But it happens a lot.
It happens a lot. So you want to see like stock award.
Reasonable pay is out the window right now. It's gone so far to being unreasonable that even reasonable CEOs are demanding unreasonable pay because everybody's got it. It's like everybody's living in a big McMansion. So now I got to live in one too. It's just normal to live in a big McMansion.
What do you consider unreasonable?
$20 million a year.
Okay. What do you
consider reasonable? And there's so many CEOs making that.
Yeah, that's like peanuts.
Peanuts. There's guys making, I interviewed Bob Iger not too long ago. Bob's a great guy. Made $60 million his last year as the CEO of Jesney. $60 million. Okay. And he probably deserved it, in some way. But in another way, it's just absurd. It puts the CEO in the light of a king. Like, okay, now you're this god who made everything happen. And, that's just not the case. It is in a complex company like Disney. You've got many, 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 many people all the way down to the little guys who are pitching in on this giant team to make this thing work. It's not some guy who's just like, oh, do this. You know, he made some great decisions. He got Pixar in there. Totally think that was brilliant to bring into Pixar. And then maybe he made some decisions that are horrendous decisions. I don't know. We'll find out down the road. We won't know for years. So that's the problem with getting that kind of compensation. You know,
what would you consider reasonable? What would you look at and say like, oh, that's pretty cool. That guy gets paid that much.
I don't know. John Mackey said 14 or 15 times your average employee pay.
True.
So if your average guy's 50, then your CEO could be making, $750, $800. Average guy's making 100. Average person's making 100. Maybe your CEO's making $2 million, $1.5 million. In that range, someplace is reasonable. And that's where it used to be 40 years ago. It used to be 14 to 15 times your average employee. And now it's 400 or 500 times your average employee. It's gotten so stupid and greedy. There's no excuse for it. It wasn't that companies weren't being run well back in 1980. Okay. They're being run just as good as they're being run now. Why the hell do we have to compensate CEOs and make them more? What it does is it makes the division between people in our country so much more extreme than it's ever been before.
Well,
right?
So the counter argument to what you're saying is that most of these, not most, some of them are getting paid a lot more in salary, but a lot of these salaries are around 1.5 million, maybe 2 million.
Well, that's
and then the rest of their compensation, right? And the law was meant to deal with exactly what you're saying. So the rest of their compensation is stock. Right. So.
But they've set it up with the board, so they're going to get the money.
Oh, totally.
In other words, it's a joke. If the company grows, you get the money. Well, the company, come on, there's 2% inflation every year. The company doesn't do anything, and they grow by 2%. Look at the genius CEO. I mean, that's absurd on the surface of it. I think it's entirely fair to look back to 1980, and if you're Elizabeth Warren, you go into the White House as the vice president and soon to be president, maybe, right? And you punch through a law because these greedy bastards, all right, they're not bastards. They're just people like you and me who will take the money. You'd take it. I'd take it. Danielle would take it.
I would take the money.
All of us would take the money.
Yes.
And the board is going to try to make sure you're happy. So you wink and a nod.
I would do exactly what these guys do, which is if you don't get the money, you go to the next place and get the money over there. And that's why they talk about a market of CEOs and having to pay enough to get a good CEO because they'll go to the other company.
That's right. And when they act like that, with irresponsibility and a lack of moral code, then, which we all would do. I'm not saying we're better.
I don't know
what I'm saying is
moral code.
You're pulled by greed, okay? And you're pulled by peer pressure. And
you're one answer to that, it's your career, and this is how you get compensated.
Hey, I won big.
Yeah.
And one answer to that is Elizabeth Warren's answer. We're going to legislate that out of existence. Now, they tried that in 1992. Bill Clinton tried to put through, in fact, the Congress did put through a limit to CEO pay. You can't deduct it's not an expense you can deduct if you go over $1 million. And maybe they've made an adjustment with inflation or something, but basically it's around $1 million. And so to get around that, they created all these stock options, and that has become a nightmare. And so the unintended consequence of trying to hold down CEO pay is that they exploded it. And that's the fear I have of legislation, which is, wow, what's the unintended consequences of this thing if we say, hey, man, you're legislated 15 times. You're medium-priced employee, buddy, and that's all you get from any source whatsoever. I don't know how you do it, but it's almost going to take that because I don't know how you dial this back. You guys, if you enjoyed this video and you feel it was valuable in teaching you more about how to invest, hit the like button and please share the video with your friends. And if you want more investing content, subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to click the button on the screen. We got a free gift for you. Thanks again for watching.